Okay, today we're going to look at a complicated example of solving radical equations. Examples like this one here pop up a lot where you have two different radicals that can't be combined. Since we have a 3 minus x underneath this radical and a x plus 7 underneath this radical, we can't really do anything to simplify this down into a single radical. So to solve this one, it's going to be a little bit of a process, but it starts out just the same. We're going to square both sides. So we square this side here to get rid of this radical, and then we square the other side. So this side here, since we have to square the entire side of the equation, we're actually going to have to FOIL this out. So I'm just going to rewrite this so it looks a little bit better. So we have root x plus 7 plus 2, and this is squared, so we're actually going to have two of them, times root x plus 7 plus 2. So this is our left hand side. We just rewrote this twice, and then this is equal to root 3 minus x, and all of that is squared, so we're actually just going to end up with 3 minus x. So it's nice that over here on this side of the equation we were able to take care of this root, but now we have a little bit of work to do over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to just FOIL this out. So we're going to multiply the two first terms together. So root x plus 7 times root x plus 7 is actually just going to give us x plus 7. The same thing goes, I guess if you want a example, this is just a general rule, something like root x times root x is going to be equal to just x. So that's pretty much what's happening here, is that the fact that we're multiplying two of the same thing together pretty much means that we're squaring it. So a root times a root just gives us what's underneath. So we have x plus 7 as our first term. Now our outside term is root x plus 7 times 2, so that's plus 2 times root x plus 7. Now our inside term is 2 times root x plus 7 again. And now our last term is 2 times 2, so that's 4. And all of that's equal to 3 minus x. So we pretty much expanded this out here, and now we're going to simplify a little bit more. So I'm going to combine these two roots together. Since these are both x plus 7s, I can actually combine these now. And I also have these two terms here that can be combined. So I'm going to have x plus, and then we have a 7 and a 4, so x plus 11. And then this guy right here is a 2 root x plus 7 plus another 2 root x plus 7, so we're going to get plus 4 root x plus 7. And all of that's equal to our 3 minus x. So it's starting to look a little bit better. I'm going to now move these two terms here over onto the other side of the equation, just so that I end up with my root all by itself. So I'm going to have to subtract x, and I'm going to have to subtract 11. So what we're left over with is 4 times the square root of x plus 7, and this is going to be equal to 3 minus 11, so that's negative 8, and then negative x minus x, which is negative 2x. So we're starting to look better, and we want to get rid of this root, so Now it's time to square both sides again. So we're going to square this side, and we're going to square this side. So now we have 4 squared times square root of x plus 7 squared is just x plus 7. And on this side, this is going to have to be FOILed. So we have negative 8 minus 2x times negative 8 minus 2x. So now we have to FOIL out this side, and we also want to distribute this 4 squared into this parentheses here. So I'm going to distribute this. 4 squared is 16, so 16 times x is 16x, and 16 times 7 is 112, and then we have to FOIL this out. So we have our first term, which is negative 8 times negative 8, so that's positive 64. Now our outside term is negative 8 times negative 2x, so that's going to give us positive 16x. Our inside term is negative 2x times negative 8, so that's positive 16x. And then our last term is negative 2x times negative 2x, so that's positive 4x squared. So now we want to combine like terms, so these two terms can be combined here, and I'm just going to rewrite everything else. 16x plus 112 equals 64, plus this is going to be 32x plus 4x squared. And now this is starting to look pretty much like a quadratic equation. So we know that in order to solve quadratic equations, we just need to get everything over onto one side of the equation and the other side equal to 0. And then from there we can try to factor or complete the square or something like that. So I'm going to move this 112 over to this side, and I'm going to move the 16x over to that side as well. So I'm subtracting 16x and I'm subtracting 112. So what we're left with is 64 minus 112. So since I'm moving both of these over, we're going to have a 0 on this side of the equation. And then 64 minus 112 is negative 48. And 32 minus 16x is positive 16x. And then we still have this plus 4x squared. So now this equation right here looks like something that we know how to solve. So I'm going to just transfer this over onto a fresh sheet of paper, and then we'll continue. So the equation that we had was 0 equals negative 48 plus 16x plus 4x squared. And we know a few different ways to solve equations like this. You can use a quadratic formula, you can factor, you can complete the square, you can put it in your graphing calculator. I'm going to try to factor this one. So just to kind of get it in a form that might be easier to look at, I'm just going to rewrite this really quick. 4x squared plus 16x minus 48 equals 0. So these two equations are the same. You're allowed to reorder your pluses and minuses as much as you want, so I just kind of moved things around a little bit And this quadratic in red is something um, that we definitely know how to solve. So I'm going to factor out a 4. So I'm left with x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. And now we want to factor this in here. So it looks like I need something that's going to multiply to negative 12 and add to positive 4. So I think that that's going to be positive 6 and negative 2. So we have x minus 2 times x plus 6. So this is what we're left with here. So I just took this quadratic in here and factored it down. And finally we need to solve for x. So we just set everything equal to 0. So like this 4 outside doesn't really matter. If you want, you can divide the entire equation by 4. So the 4's will cancel here, and then you're left with 0 over 4 on the other side, which is just equal to 0. So we have x minus 2 times x plus 6 still equals 0. And now we just want to solve for x. So setting this equal to 0, we know one of our solutions is going to be x equals positive 2, and then the other solution, setting this part equal to 0, it's going to be x equals negative 6. So like I've mentioned in earlier videos, once we have our two solutions, it's very important to plug these back into the original equation, because sometimes you end up with solutions that don't work out. So just a reminder, our original equation was square root of x plus 7 plus 2 equals square root of 3 minus x. So this is our original equation. So let's plug in 2 first. So I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to replace it with all of my x's. So I end up with the square root of 2 plus 7 plus 2 equals square root of 3 minus 2. And let's just continue to simplify. This is going to be the square root of 9 plus 2 equals 3 minus 2 is 1. The square root of 1. We'll simplify this a little bit more. Square root of 9 is 3, so we have 3 plus 2 equals the square root of 1 is 1. And stopping at this point, we already know that 3 plus 2 does not equal 1. So for that reason, 2 is not a solution. So if you're doing this on an exam or a homework assignment or something, you would just cross out your 2 and make sure that whoever's grading it knows that 2 is not a solution. And we still have one more solution to check. There is a possibility that we could end up with no solution. So I'm going to grab another sheet of paper and we're going to check x equals negative 6 now. So rewriting the original equation, we have the square root of x plus 7 plus 2 equals the square root of 3 minus x. So there's our original equation, and we're checking the solution x equals 6. or x equals negative 6. Sorry, that was the, we ruled this one out, and now we're checking this x equals negative 6 solution. So we're going to take negative 6 and plug it in and see what we get. So I'm going to have the square root of negative 6 plus 7 plus 2, and that's going to equal the square root of 3 minus negative 6. And let's simplify a little bit. So negative 6 plus 7 is 1, so we have the square root of 1 plus 2 equals 3 minus a negative 6 is going to give us a positive 9. So that's the square root of 9. Simplifying a little bit more, the square root of 1 equals to 1, so this is 1 plus 2, so we have a 3 over on this side, and the square root of 9 is 3. So here we see that we get 3 equals 3, which is true. So this x minus x equals negative 6 solution right here is going to be our solution. So this overall equation here has one solution, and that is x equals negative 6.